Laura Gilbert here from Mrs. Gilbert's Tips. My goal in this channel is to help reduce the stress and craziness of parenting young children. And I've always been passionate about this subject. My younger sister was born when I was 12, and basically I was a mom to her until I moved out at 18 because my parents both worked evenings and weekends, so I needed to give her bath and put her to bed at night and make her dinner and help her behave herself. And I read my first child management book when I was 14 years old, and ever since then I have been reading how to raise kids, how to talk to them, to get them to listen, and what's the best strategies to use, and how do you not go crazy? How do you remain sane on the inside when you're dealing with a completely illogical 2.5 or 3-year-old? And so I have my own kids now, and I've also taught. I taught for 7 years. I have my master's in education. So the thing that I'm most interested in is watching, what did the teacher say? How did the kids behave? And what did the parent just say? And what was the result of the parent's words? Did the kid stop? Did the kid do anything when the parent asked them to change their behavior? So I'm constantly looking for these strategies. So this book, 1, 2, 3 Magic, was the biggest game changer for me. Up until then, I had read lots of things. There's lots of conflicting information, and there are a lot of books that give you great philosophy, but maybe not as many very practical tips for what you could start doing immediately. This one gave the very practical tips, and I started them right away with my kids and saw big behavior changes immediately. So I highly support you getting this book. It was written in 2003. So, I've seen them at the Goodwill, which is my favorite place to shop for books. You could get it from the library. It's easy breezy. But if you don't get it, I will recap very quickly. You could read the first 40 pages in 20 minutes and start the technique right away. It's very simple, but don't be deceived by the simplicity. It does take a little practice. Basically, this is how it goes. Child misbehaves. Parent says, that's 1. Child misbehaves again. Parent says, that's 2. Child misbehaves again. Parent says, that's 3. Consequence. Whatever your chosen consequence is. That's why my previous video was on choosing the consequence that you're comfortable with. My other previous video, timeouts and withdrawing privileges, I'm very comfortable with a timeout. So I made that, as long as I'm home, I made that my number 3. So when I say that's 3 timeout, my kid knows they go to their room. That's basically it. You want to do it with as little emotional investment as possible, so there's not a lot of drama. You don't want to take any arguments from the kid. If there's a misbehavior that keeps happening, you're going to discuss that at a less emotional time for the kid, not when they're right in the middle of doing the misbehavior anyway. So when you're consequencing a behavior is not the time to get into a big discussion and argument with your child about that misbehavior. You as the parent are saying, this behavior right now is unacceptable for me, therefore you must change it. And you're doing that in 2 words by saying, that's 1. There are a couple times that I've done this over practicing it for the last 3 or 4 years when it has been, that's 1, that's 2, that's 3, time out. And I pat myself on the back and say, great job. But usually you just fall back into habits, of course. I would say, that's 1, because you're whining and you're getting on my nerves and you're making me crazy and you're giving me, all of that was unnecessary. Maybe that's whining is helpful if they honestly have no idea what they're doing wrong. In general, kids know what they're doing wrong. So when you say that's 1, so here's an example. I was sitting on the couch, just entering the world of Instagram with my friend who was saying, oh, go to front doors and click on this and add that. So we were mostly ignoring the kids who were playing around on the floor. They needed to start getting ready for bed. So my husband was saying, oh, if you keep arguing with each other, then you're going to burp, 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 burp. They ignored him because that's what you do. So they were still rolling around on the floor fighting. And I had my phone out And I said, that's one. And they both jumped onto the chair ready for the first part of our bedtime routine, which is they watch a little show. My son drinks some milk right before we brush their teeth and they go to bed. His going into his lecture and chit chat meant nothing to them because there was no consequence attached to it. As soon as you say, that's one, that's the countdown to the consequence. And kids don't care what you say. They care what you do and what is going to affect them, which is why you can hear parents yelling and screaming and teachers. You hear teachers yelling at the class. I was a teacher. I observed every teacher in every school that I've worked in because I want to see, what are they doing? Is it working or not? What's happening with the kids? How is this whole interaction happening? And yelling doesn't really work because your kid is not, there's no immediate effect on the child. It's not a real consequence. It's just you as a parent working yourself up, which is a waste of your energy. So this, when you say that's one, they know consequence is coming. When you say that's two, they know consequence is getting closer. And so they're going to change their behavior much more quickly than if you lecture or argue with them or start yelling or whatever million things that we do. So this book is amazing. There's a lot after page 40, of course, a lot of other things on working on your relationship with your kid, a really good Q&A section for section for people who are like, what if this happens? And what if this happens? And what if this happens? But the basic is just those words. 9 words. That's 1, that's 2, that's 3, time out. 2, 4, 6, 8. 8 words. So good luck with your 8 words. Good luck trying it out. It was, for me and for a lot of parents that I know, it was a life changer. People were able to stop yelling, stop spanking if they were choosing to stop spanking, stop all of the drama and emotional dance that goes on between kids and parents when the kids are trying to get their way and the parents are trying to get their way. So, good luck.